A recording of this meeting is being made and shall be kept for 30 days as public record. Pledge of Allegiance by roll call. Mario Gutierrez, Dr. Carol Robinson. And I also wanted to open up with a special agenda for today.
We'll do that after we close up this one.
Okay.
We have to close one meeting and then open that.
Okay. Approve agenda. Do I get a motion?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 2 absent. Comments from the public. Members of the public may address the board on any item within the jurisdiction of the board by submitting presentation requests to the secretary. Members of the public are strongly urged not to mention personnel by name and are reminded that they do not have immunity from legal action if personnel are named. The board may limit each speaker to 3 minutes with a total of 20 minutes. And we have Mary Paskowski. And Jessica Acevedo. Oh, okay.
Good evening. I came here to talk to you about morale. The morale is very low. Even the substitute teachers are noticing it. I was going to wait for the next board meeting to bring this to you, but after the events that transpired this week, I feel it's important to speak as soon as possible. I've talked to several staff members and at various sites, and most of the stories are the same. We don't feel valued or appreciated. I realize this week has been stressful for everyone, but it's in these times that we need a leader to calm the fears of not just the students, but the employees as well. Remember that the employees have children in this district. If those children are scared and the employees are going home in confusion and frustration also, and cannot alleviate their child's fears because the school is closing down. So from friends from another district, they got an email directly from their superintendent that showed some care, and let me just read it. So it says, "Good evening to the families. I want to acknowledge the challenges that exist within our community at this time. Thank you for your patience and support during this extraordinary time of uncertainty and navigate the response to the coronavirus situation." It follows with questions that have come to them and the answers as best they could. It tells them the procedures and protocols to try to help the symptoms, such as washing your hands 20 seconds and that. And it closes in, "I appreciate your patience and commitment during this time, and please take care of yourself and your loved ones." Signed, their superintendent. We got, not from our superintendent, but the secretary, a letter that, to be honest, looked like and felt like it was a legal standpoint and not for the concern of the employees. It did nothing but cause further stress and frustration to what was going on. The morale was very low before this, and now it's dropped even more. Last year, there was a mass exodus of a lot of amazing staff members, and we are still leaking these amazing staff members. We had some leave just recently. You have loyal staff here, and we're trying to bear with you during the financial crisis, but we're being treated so poorly and unsupportive manner is a horrendous mistake. So much frustration could be eliminated with proper communication. The simple fact that the staff does not have straight answers and are wondering and confused is a perfect example of how we feel. Thank you.
So we have a student member, and the showcase is not until April the 8th. And then Jim Pullman is not here today. It says he sent an email out for one of our board members to read, and I'll go ahead and read it. It says, "I'm sorry I'm not here tonight. I am finally addressing my own family issues in regards to the coronavirus. First, I want to thank and applaud Mrs. Gaines for her leadership and decisiveness over the last week with this crisis. I have had very productive and cooperative meetings with Barbara and appreciate her understanding of concerns of our parents, students, and employees. When the closure of our schools was first announced and the requirements for the teachers was dictated, there was confusion, frustration, and anger. When lines of communication were open, there was a lessening of anxiety and people went to work. I have been moved by the response by the teachers, administrators, and classified staff to mobilize and meet the needs of the students and of the community. Teachers no longer question or argue about the independent study packets for students. They got to work and got it done. All of a sudden, in 24 hours, everything was ready. Tonight, the board is considering Resolution 1920-11. In my first reading, I was very uncomfortable with the few clauses in the resolution. Upon more reading and consultation with the CTA, I better understand the purpose of the resolution. I feel the CTA Legal Services agrees that the resolution is in its referral to the Government Code 3100 is somewhat overreaching. This pandemic is a disaster, but not the type of natural disaster outlined in the code. Public service workers need to be available to assist in mitigating a crisis. We just may not be available to be assigned or ordered to certain duties. RTA just wants to be clear. Any change in our working conditions must be negotiated. I am not asking for a change in the resolution. I simply want to be on record with the board and the superintendent that the RTA expects to be included in discussions before orders are handed down. With that said, please vote on the resolution as you see fit is best for our district. I look forward to my continued work with Mrs. Gaines and the district and seeing us through these uncertain times. Thanks, Mr. Coleman. Any questions? Okay, what about CSEA?
So I've been speaking with Ms. Gaines also about what things are kind of look like for our classified employees. So far things are moving, really well, but I think there's still a lot of uncertainty with the classified staff, and the sooner that we could get some sort of plan in place, it's really going to help us out, because it's obvious we're not going to need all 100 staff at each site to fulfill no duties. We understand that there's going to be lunches served to the community and we'll need our food service, but with that, we don't need all of our custodians working 8-hour shifts at the school sites. Once they're done with their normal routine cleaning, perhaps we could dial it back and they're just supporting the kitchen staff and maybe supporting admin that are taking place there. So, and having all of the staff at the school sites might not be most ideal. We're trying to dial back this virus. We're not trying to expose everybody there. So maybe some rotations of the staff, if we have 2 custodians per school site or something of the sort. I just think it'd be foolish to really bring everybody in. We need to dial back our staff and do very minimal sort of work. Just get the job that's necessary done. We also have some people that are really trying to pull together, and these are people of all different classifications, and I know there's a lot of gray area here, but this is just the unity that we have in our classified staff. That we have people from all classifications willing to work in other classifications, people that would step into a custodian position to help ease their job and their stress levels, right? Because we have a lot of people that are going to have kids at home and they're going to have to pay for daycare because they're here working and their kids are, not in school, not in session. So there's still a lot of things that we need to work out. Hopefully we get some sort of minimized shifts, minimized staff working. Even if our office hours are shortened, so we don't have like all of our clerks there for 8 hours a day. But in the end, our people really need to know a clear plan as to who's going to be, stationed where, doing what job, so that they can make the proper accommodations for their family, whether that's finding daycare for their students or whatever else they need. But like I said, we've been through a lot of discussions already. Things are working their way through. But that March 30th date, it's really, it's going to come quickly. And I think before then, if we have a good set plan and schedule for people to see what is going to be occurring through the 30th and to April 14th, it's really going to ease a lot of people's minds. So I hope we could get to that soon. And of course, all of the classified staff are willing to help out wherever and how. So thank you all for your work and doing everything that you can to help ease this situation for the whole community.
Thank you, Gary. CEO?
Thank you. I just wanted to also reiterate the sort of pride that I feel about to the whole thing, and they're in it for the right reasons, and it's nice to see that in real terms with staff. And my staff in the business office has been very vocal about saying, if you hear anybody that needs our help, we're happy to go and help. And today they were helping to sort packets on the fly with Leanne's department and others. And it's nice to see that cooperation. This is a good district and a bunch of good people.
Associate Superintendent, Ms. Harkins.
Good evening, and thank you all for coming. And thank everybody for, just hanging together during this time of uncertainty. And I know Mrs. Gaines every day has been meeting with the superintendent from Kern County and all the other superintendents as all of these mandates have come down, and it's just been so uncertain. So, I think she's done the best job that she can to get that information out as quickly and, with as much clarity as she's been given. So, it's been tough. It's been really tough. But again, and then we had our independent study packets that we had today. And as all great plans go, sometimes they don't happen quite the way you want them to. And the company that we had outsourced them to, got 240,000 plus pieces of paper, and they did it in a very short period of time. We would have really liked it if they'd stapled them, but it caused a little bit of chaos this morning. But everybody at the district office, we had people from HR, we had people from special ed, from the business office. Everybody was pulling together to get those stapled and bundled together. And then at 1:05, the rest of them arrived, and some of them were stapled and some of them were not. So, West Park gets out at 1:25, and so it was a race to get everything over there. And then as we, and so they had their ton of workers in their office, and then we pull up to Roosevelt Elementary, and they have all of their staff out there, just really pulling together to get those packets to students. So, really thank you to everybody for the work that you've done, and I really hope that you have a great vacation.
Superintendent, thank you. Well, I too want to welcome everybody this evening and thank you for coming out. It has been, to put it mildly, a crazy week. Things have been changing from the AM to the afternoon and even sometimes into the evening. The governor of the state of California asked us to do 4 things this week. One was to pay our staff on a regular basis, and we are complying with that. He also asked us to feed our students during the time when they would not be in school, not during the spring break, but during the time that we are in closed session. And we are doing that. And I want to say, to piggyback on what Mrs. Hargis said, our child nutrition department has been stellar. They have stepped up this week and along with transportation, and really have the whole plan worked out of when we will serve the community, not just our students, but children who live in the community that may go to school elsewhere. We will be feeding them as well. So we have set up 4 different spots that we're going to be feeding these children at the park. Help me, Mario, the name of the park? United. I always forget the name of that park. United Street Park. We will be feeding them from 8:30 to 11:30. All the community members have to do is simply drive by or walk by, whatever, and the children will be given a breakfast and a lunch. We also will be doing the same thing at Roseman Elementary, West Park Elementary, and Tropico Middle. And I want to say about the transportation department that Ashley, in the absence of Director Donna, has really stepped up also. She called all of the students who live out on the far west side and asked them, do you need us to be able to hand deliver to your door food during this time? And so I was very grateful to her, and very just in awe of her willingness to do that. I've also met at my request with both the CSEA leader and the RTA leader, so that we could exchange ideas and see what this should look like. It was a little bit easier to finalize for the teachers because basically there are no students and they're on a contract. So they went off on spring break and they're able to do some work at home. In saying that, they too have to plan, and they have to be available with phone calls and emails and everything else should for some reason we need to call them back, or some of them back. Because the 4th thing that the governor has asked us to do that we are still extremely uncertain about at this time, not us as a district, but the state of California is very uncertain about, is provides security and provide a form of supervision, thank you, Leanne, for our students while we're closed. And so when you think about that, if we're providing supervision, we're feeding them, and we're also having to provide them with education packets or the ability to learn for 10 days straight, that sure does sound like school to me, no matter how you spin it. And so for a district the size of ours, even our size district with 3,600 students nearly, providing supervision when everybody is off, it is a problem. And my colleagues in Kern County who have larger districts are really freaking out about how could they do it. Some of these school districts have 34,000 students. And so that is an area of the governor's mandates for us as superintendents that is still not clear to this point. And every day I have webinars, sometimes 2 or 3, where things are changing, because this pandemic is so fluid and there are so many uncertain things about it that we have to sort of learn as we go, if you will. But I want to say that the entire team, from my cabinet members to the teachers, to the special ed teachers, to the classified staff, transportation, child nutrition, custodians, the maintenance people, everybody has really been stellar this week. I haven't really, I think out of the whole population of 430 some employees, I only had one person tell me they couldn't do something, and that was because
they're not here. They're not actually at work, so I understood that. But I want to say kudos to everybody, and you know, we're going to get through this every single day, and hopefully we'll be able to return to school on April 14th. That's my goal. I don't control that, so thank you.
Thank you for doing everything you guys are doing with the uncertainty that we have in the state right now. How I feel about this is different, but I'll be kind to everyone. I'll steal a line from Caleb Schrader. He gave a speech about wash your hands. Just do what you would normally do if somebody has a cold or the flu or is sick in your household. Wash your hands. And, you know, don't share. So, other than that, we have to do what the governor tells us we have to do, which I think he is a little overboard on closing down all the, I don't understand how you would close down a restaurant, but yet have 40,000 people in line outside a store touching each other. Just makes no sense. So, with that, I hope everybody has a nice little vacation.
Hi, I'm glad you're here. I didn't expect anybody to be here. I thought you all went on vacation. But it is very uncertain, but we have to obey the leaders of our state, even if we think it's absolutely ridiculous. Since we have no cases in Kern County, and, you know, anyway. But we do have to abide by our leaders and try to cooperate with the community, and I understand being fearful of some unknown thing. And I'm going to go a step farther than just wash your hands. It only takes a tablespoon of bleach in a gallon of water to disinfect toys and, you know, doorknobs and everything else. So, you know, we don't have to go get those disinfectants at the store. It's really inexpensive to do it that way. And be considerate, like young healthy people, they may have the virus but not present any symptoms, and yet they might spread to someone else. So, or, you know, so if you're going to be around a large crowd of people, you may not get sick from it, but be considerate of people who have COPD and they're on chemotherapy and stuff. Only go in with clean clothes, you know, change your clothes. If you've been around a large crowd, go home, take a shower, put on clean clothes before you go into somebody to see someone who's, you know, we just need to be considerate of people who are not, you know, because I haven't had a cold in 20 years. I don't expect to get the virus. But my husband, he has a lot of breathing problems and stuff, and so I would want to do that, make sure that if I'm out in a crowd, I have to go shopping and things, that I would come home and, like I said, you know, change the clothes. So just be considerate of others, because it's not just you and your fears, it's also people who are worse than you. So, and it is very uncertain. Nobody knows what they're doing. It's like having an invisible enemy, you know. There's this invisible thing, it's unknown, and it brings up a lot of fears. But just be reasonable about it, you know. Wash your hands, disinfect, be considerate of older people, and try to be nice to one another. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. And just to add to Mario's and Dr. Robinson's, I just want to say that we're a small town, and we always pull together. You know, so I think we need to pull together on this and not worry, you know, as much. And if we care for each other, you know, that will help us out. I understand the cares that, you know, that your concerns and stuff for CSEA and for the teachers and parents and even the students are scared. So I think as adults, if we lead the way, and then, you know, things will go, you know, smoother and calmer for our kids and for other adults that are having a hard time. And just for that, you know, it's really hard to go with all the changes, you know, daily, hourly from the government, and we have to abide by them. And then there's just different things that we have to just do that we don't agree with, and I think we just have to kind of just swallow it and go with our leadership, because if we have too many, and then there's a lot of confusion. So, and I think that our leadership that we have now, Mrs. Gaines, is taking it by the arm, by the neck, and just going with whatever's, you know, Kern County Superintendent of Schools is asking us to do. So, just in that, I just want to say if we just work together and be there for each other, we'll be okay. Thank you. Consent items.
Make a motion that we accept it, but I want a clarification on why we're having to approve all the old field trips.
I can answer that for Mr. Gutierrez. I think it was in February, I mentioned to Tammy in the business office that I wanted all the field trips, whether they were overnight, walking, out of city, out of state, whatever, to come for board approval. And I was told at that time that only in the history, there's a history of only bringing the ones that were overnight. And I said, okay, I understand that, but I'd like to begin by bringing all of them moving forward, because there are liability issues, whether they're just walking to the park or if they're going somewhere out of our county. And so I think what that caused was, in her mind, that we need to backtrack all of them for the year probably and just bring them all, even though, excuse me, many of them have occurred already, but we're just sort of giving you a visual, if you will, of the field trips that have happened. Now, the ones that are on here, April 17th and 19th and April 24th, I can ask you to approve them with the idea in mind that there's a chance they won't be happening. I will leave that for your decision if you want to approve them, or we would have a chance maybe to bring them back, but not before.
I'll let's go ahead and still make a motion to approve them. Again, it all depends on what happens in the next month, basically.
I don't even think it's going to take
The
that long.
next hour.
The next hour. And that way, if everything everything continues on, like we're hoping that it will, they will be approved and be ready to do what they want to do, and we can continue on. That way, I guess
Well, I appreciate you approving them if that is what the board decides to do. Because if we should return on April 14th, then, you know, I think it would be really good for the benefit of the children that we could return to some sense of normalcy if that's the case.
Yeah, and if, of course,
We'll know, I'm sure.
if the venue
way
itself
before.
is still open.
Yes, yes.
Everything's up in the air, so. So a motion is made.
Okay, so, motion by Terrace,
I'm concerned that the kids are going to, even though they've got some home learning packets and stuff, that they're already going to have classroom time that will have missed, and then they're going to take
Well, that's
classroom time out.
This is just approved for, they may not even go to the filter. They may, because they don't have the classroom time that they need. At least this way it's approved if they are caught up and want to continue doing that. It doesn't have to come back to us. That's why I motioned to go ahead. Now, if for some reason everybody didn't get their stuff done and they need to sit in the classroom and get things back on track, then we do that. But at least this gives them, an opening to be able to do some stuff that maybe, and chances are they're not going to, but at least that's a hope.
I just think our educational things.
They are. Everything's changing, they're talking about he did not even have to test when he come back. And it all depends if we're gonna come back, right?
Exactly.
I mean, we might not even come back until in the fall.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just like,
At
things
least
are not
this-
always gonna be.
I at least have hope that moving forward.
And I just want to make a notation that the letter M is part of N, which is it's the company that's going to do the equipment inventory. So we can omit that.
Take off the N and
The M.
put them together.
Just put them together. Okay, so Terrace made the motion and Dr. Robinson seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Approve the HPLE Incorporated Project Construction Management Services. Mr. Park?
Yes. Just a brief few comments about what I'm putting in front of you and recommending this evening, and why. We have the great opportunity to have 6 new classrooms, almost 100% funded by the state, as we've discussed several times. And in accepting that money, we accepted a very tight deadline, a tight timeline to get certain pieces of the project done. The first phase is the planning phase. We have almost $700,000 for that phase of the project, and we need to make it through that project by November 1st. Some of the design work which was done in advance is still useful, but not to the level that we had hoped originally, and so we're slowed down a little bit there. We have to do some rework and replanning. So in the interest of ensuring success in the project and not even making it to phase 2, we wanted to make sure we have the strongest team possible. As we know, we cannot pay district staff for this type of money, so it needs to be new staff or completely reassigned staff. We're being very careful and deliberate in making sure that we account for that properly, because you have to pay it back if the final audit shows that you were improper. We've done, we requested 3 proposals from different firms that provide the kinds of services that we need in phase 1, which is not construction management, but it is process management for the design phase. So what they will do is they have specific talents in understanding how to navigate the state agencies that are involved in this process. their talents in understanding what goes into the design process, and they can advocate on the district's behalf. We reviewed three proposals, the kinds of services they believed they could offer, and I'm making a recommendation this evening for HPLE. We check references with local districts and not local districts, as well as some county office staff who have experience with the pool of 3 that we were looking at. We think this is the strongest candidate. I feel like we'll be able to have a good, open, honest relationship as we move forward, and I think that's one of the most important parts of success in these types of projects.
I'll make a motion that we approve their contract with management.
Motion by Gutierrez. Second by Hutchinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Hutchinson.
Thank you.
Approve the 2021 school calendar, Ms. Harvey.
So our calendar committee met a couple of different times to sort of hash out, so to speak, our calendar. And this is our final draft that we have to do.
This calendar is for 2021 or
2021. Right, it's for next year.
No, because there was, a couple years ago, we were trying to get
2 years
this
in a
year.
row. Yeah. No, we just stuck with next year.
Okay.
And it's very similar to the calendars that we've had in the past. You know, really the one difference being we used to have 3 minimum days or 2 minimum days at the beginning. We really felt strongly that we needed to take those minimum days and put them in places where staff would be able to, you know, meet in their professional learning communities.
I'll make a motion that we accept the calendar.
Second.
All in favor? Approve resolution 1920-10, post-employment qualified plan contributions for unrepresented classified management employees. Mr. Barr.
Thank you. This is a modification to our plan documents as required by the IRS. These plan documents allow all employees to contribute by choice, by election, with certain tax-sheltered investment opportunities. So it's not a mandatory program for most people. It has the opportunity for district employer contributions as well as employee contributions under certain circumstances. And this makes a modification to the plan document to allow us to specifically eliminate accrued leave time, which, as you know, is an audit issue most years. You know, it's not a finding, but they don't like to see an excessive amount of accrued liability for the district, because vacation and time that is compensable can accrue over time, and the district needs to manage it. And we need to acknowledge that, especially when we're confronted with fiscal crisis, it could potentially push us further in the wrong direction. So this is an opportunity for us to be able to balance getting money off the books with a reminder to actively and proactively manage the utilization of vacation, which is there because it's a good thing for staff and a good thing for the working players.
I make a motion that we accept the resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
For Gentlemen and instruction, approved master plan for English learners, 2019 to 2020. Ms. Hargis?
So the master plan, this was brought to you last year when we were going through our FPM audit. And so this year is just updates, but if you remember, the master plan talks about how we are going to service our English learners.
I'll make a motion that we accept the master plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
With the
that B.
Yeah, I'm going back to B. Second interim review and approved negative certification on March 10, 2020.
A minute, I thought it was. We presented this item,
Everything's confusing right now.
passing a copy of the PowerPoint down the table, and when I presented the report at the last meeting, there was not many members of the public here, and we're part of the reason why we do these interim reports is to make sure that we have disclosure of our financial condition, not just to the board, but to the community. So we take that advantage of the opportunity tonight to do that. And I'll be fairly brief. This is essentially a replica of the first interim presentation, and even a little bit shorter than that. I didn't bring my, sorry. Thank you, sir. The second interim district every district in the state is required to produce at least 2 interim reports during the course of the fiscal year. They hit the end of October and the end of January. Under certain circumstances, there's either an optional 3rd interim report or a compelled interim report. Any district with a negative certification or a qualified certification needs to do a 3rd interim report. I believe you had one last year. We will have one again this year, and we hope, given what we see, that we will not have one next year. Budget overview for expenditures. We're monitoring expenditures closely. We're sticking with the plan for the year. There have not been significant swings in planned expenditures from adopted budget to second interim. Where there have been adjustments, they have largely been the result of shifts in staff in specific positions. We're largely a people business, and our budget reflects that, with about 85 to 87% of our budget being salary and benefits. And the other place that we have adjusted our budget is largely in response to specific student needs. We have been able to be a little bit flexible and make sure that we are doing what's right for students when we can and when we need to. And you see that here. Revenues, I am budgeting revenues extremely conservatively, and I acknowledge that publicly. I think it's part of our strategy to not look exuberantly good when there's still risk on the horizon. We've all seen what's happened in the last week because of a health scare. Your projection in this report, both because of my opinion and also because of the county office's recommendation that we not get ahead of ourselves. The largest share of funding coming to the district, likely to come to the district, has not yet been approved, even though some of it is believed to be almost a guarantee. So we haven't done that yet. We will do that when we do budget development, if we're closer to having that decision being made. The ending fund balance is where we're trying to focus our attention at this point. The budget is essentially structurally balanced for this year. We're looking at a year next year where we will have a structurally positive budget, and then we will have a significant increase following that. The ending balance, we're chasing it upward slowly. We've exceeded the pace of prediction for repaying the county office, which is the remaining component of getting ourselves out of a negative certification. Because we really do believe that we will have for next year, once we include all of those new revenues, a positive, structurally positive budget presented to you. We still will have to certify a negative budget, and that's a little confusing. Some people have asked, why don't we shift to qualified? And the reason is that we will not be able to meet the ending fund balance requirement. If we met the ending fund balance requirement in the first 2 years, for example, but then fell in the third year, we could have a qualified budget. But because we owe the county money and cannot make that 3% minimum requirement, we'll be negative. We do pop very quickly to being over 3%, and that is with a model that holds pace with what we have for programming now. As we recover, we will need to begin the conversations of how much do we do new or restored as we move along, given the revenues that we're seeing come in and the amount that we think we can accommodate into the budget. But there's good news in the future. Obviously, we don't want to return quickly to the current state of affairs, and so I will continue to be a cautious voice. But I'm optimistic, in all honesty, that we're doing well. So as we look at the very summary detail of the next 3 years, where we land at the end of the year, we are without a doubt negative for this year. Not unexpected. We knew that was the situation, but the actions that the board and the community took last year take care of righting the ship. And so we're holding that course, and we're doing well with it. And we have good news in the 2 out years. So there's no action required from the board tonight. I'm happy to address any questions if there are any, or any other areas you wanted me to speak to.
So I do have a question about the ending balances. That's a conservative ending balance, and you do actually expect more revenue, so it could be more?
It could be more, yes, yes. One of the factors in the assumption model is COLA, and we have used COLA a little bit at first interim to move revenues, but I did not use COLA this time, particularly because there's a lot of uncertainty around it. The COLAs that have been published are fairly high. There's some talk that we will end up with lower COLAs as we move forward, and there's significant pressure on the expenditure side of the budget, which exceeds what COLA will give us. And so it's sort of representing the reality that COLA for us in this reality, or in this environment, doesn't mean that new money. It means helping to cover the costs that were already running away with us. And in all honesty, those costs are PERS and STIRS costs. The district is facing that still significantly steep increase in its share of the retirement costs, pension costs.
Any questions from the audience? Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Personnel items?
If we would have any questions, I would make a motion that we approve the personnel items as written.
Second by Dr. Robinson. All in favor?
Aye. I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Second by Robinson. All in favor?
Aye.
2 absent. At 8:05. Dr. Carol Robinson, Mario Terrace, Liz absent. Approve agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Terrace, second by Robinson. All in favor?
Aye.
2 absent. 8:05. 8:06. Any comments?
No, there aren't.
Okay. This is an action item that's Resolution 19-20-11, declaring emergency conditions is 16 at district schools and offices and conveying authorization to take necessary action to prepare and respond effectively to the novel coronavirus, the COVID-19 students.
Yes, actually, as the superintendent, you have bestowed with me the authority to make decisions on behalf of Southern Kern Unified School District. But in lieu of the fact that things are so fluid and they are happening so quickly, and I don't want to have to call emergency meetings, sometimes as many as maybe a couple a day. This past week it has been really at that level. This basically just assures me that I have your faith in me that I can move forward and make decisions with regard to, I think primarily many of the decisions we've already had to make, and some of them are out of even our control because we are having to follow the mandates of the governor and the health department and the Kern County Superintendent of Schools. There's a little bit of flexibility in what we can do, but primarily it's very structured in what I can and cannot do for the most part. But this resolution just basically allows me to make any decision that I might have to make in haste with little time.
Actually, there is a part of this resolution that I really like, and that is that it's taking into consideration employees that have to take extended leaves of absence because they're quarantined or they have sick children, and so I was happy to see that addressed, and I'm hoping the money will come through to help people in those situations.
We did a resolution very similar to this at Valley College as well. I think most districts are doing something like this right now.
I've got a question. It has to do with the budget and the virus. We get paid on ADA, what's in the seat. How is this going to affect that?
The governor has, I'm sorry.
Please jump in.
The governor has said that it won't affect us. We have been told that we will stop reporting attendance in February. And so from here until the end of the year, I'm actually not 100% clear how we're going to do that. It will either be a historical average or prior year ADA, but we will be held harmless is the word I've heard used. So we should be fully funded moving forward. It's not extra money, but we're not losing money.
Yeah,
Mr. Gutierrez, if I can piggyback on that.
Make sure you wash that shirt when
Yeah.
you go home.
We'll talk more. No, because it was just a question, because you get paid for what's in the seat. Because I want to make sure that staff, if you have somebody home sick, stay home with them. Don't bring it to work.
Actually, Mr. Gutierrez, if I can just add something to what Jonathan said. As a matter of fact, just today, that was a topic of conversation because it was implied that while we are out, not on spring break, but starting March 30th, that I need to take an attendance count, to which, I mean, it's very hard to just keep a straight face in some of these webinars because we're thinking, how do we take an attendance account when the students are not at the sites? So then a question was asked, do we take do we look at the packets, let's say the packets that the students were given, and some of the packets were as many as 150 pages.
Right.
Do we take the packet then, someone asked, and when the children bring back the packet, hopefully they will, we know those packets are valuable to us. Do we say, oh, this child completed 75% of the packet, so does that mean that we give them attendance for only 75% of the 10 days? It was that bizarre today.
Well, I was kind of thinking the same way because of independent study, you don't get 100%.
And that is another question that Dr. Barlow promised us that she would, she talks daily with the governor, that she would really try that and how we are supposed to, what that supervision should look like. It's easy to say supervise children, but what is that really going to look like? And so, and how are we supposed to do that with letting people go home? And so there's still some very, very significant components of this coronavirus and the impact it's having on education and school districts that are unanswered. That's why every day we have a webinar, and hopefully that the attendance will be something that will be addressed.
Ms. Gaines, going off of the packet in the 75%, are they taking into account special education kids that normally get the extra help from in the classes to finish these packets?
You know, Mary, this was just a question brought up by another superintendent. Dr. Barlow did not think that's how we're going to count attendance based on what the kids do or do not do of the packet. I think the most critical thing about the packet is that we were mandated to give work. And that packet shows we gave work to our students, and a significant amount of work to really.
Well, I mean, if a child has been in school learning, they should be able to do the packet, even with a little help from a parent, hopefully. And that's a big hopefully. It still engages their mind, and even if they don't do it right, I mean, they still thought about it, so it still is learning. So yes, I hope they do all of it, and I know some kids will. I know a lot of them won't. So that's one of the things that today, because of all our stuff going on, I thought about it a lot. It's like, okay, are we going to get, you know, we have staff that needs to be paid. We have county that needs to get paid back. And if they cut us, it's going to stick us in a hole even further. So yeah, those were all things that were going through my mind today.
Well, at this point in time, Mr. Chair, the paying of our staff does not appear to be a problem.
Right, but I'm looking at the future.
Right.
How long is the governor going to keep the kids out? I'm hoping that it's not going to be long. Hopefully it'll be the 14th or 15th kids come back.
But I think he talked about it.
I know, the last night he was saying that the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
These kids need to be
Yeah.
allowed.
Honestly, I think it's a little excessive, but
It is excessive.
Yeah.
I think
But we have to make sure that,
get month by month.
yeah, you know, or week by week or day by day, because it's changing daily, or hourly, actually.
Exactly.
So, yes, I do make a motion that we accept the resolution.
Can I make
Yeah,
a
you can.
comment about something? Some of our kids are being given computer work, and not every child has internet access at home. And I just wanted to state that there are internet companies who are offering free internet for kids that don't have internet and need That's
Right, but if they're too
But
far out.
some of them are
You have
too
to
far
be a
out.
non-existing customer
If I
too.
could respond to that.
Okay.
So students that do not have internet access, they were given a packet. Some of the students from Earth, they work out of a book. So that won't impact them. So the administrators and the staff at the school sites really worked hard to make sure that everybody, you know, would have what they need. If they have internet access, then they'll access the Google Classroom. If they don't, then they will, they had a packet or they had something else that they took home. And also I wanted to address your comment about special education students. They had to have packets. They did not just get a regular gen ed packet that we made,
Right.
you know, thousands of copies of. They had to have a packet that was based on their IEP. So.
Well,
let Ms. Ackerman ask first, because I think we might have the same question.
Well, I guess from the state level, I was watching one of those meetings online today that they have from the CDE. And at their level, they said they haven't even gotten to that part yet. Like, how are the kids with IEPs going to still get their services?
exact, that
So
was
they
my
haven't,
question.
they haven't even gotten that far yet. They acknowledge that they don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
From the Office of Civil Rights, Mrs. Saccomini, I have that information from the Office of Civil Rights. There are certain things that they are waiving temporarily, but actually the education, the fact that our special ed students must be given cognitive grade level appropriate packets to do their work. This came down from the Office of Civil Rights as well. Now, as far as the IEPs, those can be postponed, and we still will need to have maybe some social emotional people on staff in case there are needs for them to be, you know, communicate with kids and things during this 14 days or until the 14th of April. But so see that in itself is an issue. CDE is saying one thing, but the Federal Office of Civil Rights is saying that we have to do A, B, and C.
Just to add to, so it's not ideal, but we actually had some students that don't have internet access, but asked for the computer work. Because they live by West Park or Roosevelt Elementary, and they've actually sent them to just go sit and, honestly, out in the parking lot or and stuff, or like have one kid said he's just gonna take his brother to the park and just do his work, because he's just so used to doing that and stuff. So they do have options like this.
They go to the libraries.
And not all of the work that was given to
No.
them, they can access their textbook
Yeah.
on, you know,
Offline.
offline. And so that is one thing that I made very clear to Mr. Wexler, was I did not want children being given work that they may or may not have access to at home. I wanted it to be equitable for all of the kids. And so he also sent out a page filled with various different websites, if they had access, that they could, you know, do virtual tours and do different things just to sort of give them additional learning opportunities besides the work that was assigned by the teachers.
You already motioned?
Okay, now
Second.
Second by Dr. Robinson, in favor? Aye. Two absent, and that's at 8:20. Is there a motion?
Go ahead.
Can I motion that we adjourn?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Two absent at 8:20.